Petition number 1855 is to pardon and memorialise those convicted under the Witchcraft Act of 1563. This petition is lodged by Claire Mitchell QC. The petition calls on the Scottish Government to pardon, apologise and create a national monument to memorialise those people in Scotland accused and convicted as witches under the Witchcraft Act of 1563. In its submission, the Scottish Government explains the process involved in granting a free pardon. If such a pardon is granted, the conviction is disregarded to the extent that, as far as possible, the person is relieved of all penalties and other consequences of the conviction. The conviction is not quashed, however, as only the courts have that power. The responsibility to review and refer alleged miscarriages of justice to the High Court lies with the Scottish Criminal Cases Review Commission. The Commission has the power to consider a case even after the death of the person or persons convicted. Humanist Society Scotland has provided a submission in support of the petition. The organisation urges the committee, when considering those historically convicted of witchcraft, to also consider how the Scottish Government's current work in international development, particularly through the Scottish-Malawi Partnership, can better challenge witchcraft based on violence. And I think all colleagues will have received a number of emails in respect of this petition, making representations in addition. And again, I'm happy to open this up to colleagues to consider how we proceed in the light of the quite detailed response from the Scottish Government and the other submissions that we have received. David Torrance in the first instance.
Thank you, Convener. I think we should take the recommendations of the Scottish Government and write to Petitioner to ask if he could bring a specific case forward. And
sorry, thank you.
Bill Kidd?
Yep, thank you. I think that's a reasonable approach, because I do think it's a matter of long-standing concern, which actually still resonates today in some parts of the world. But it resonates with people in Scotland on the basis that injustice was done to a large number of people. However, to be able to take that forward most successfully, I do think that, as has been suggested, a specific case or set of cases could actually provide a focal point that we could work from and take that towards the Scottish Government, rather than trying to take on the whole large number of people over a large period of time.
Thank you, Bill. I mean, it is astonishing. I mean, the petitioner suggests some 4,000 people were prosecuted under the Witchcraft Act, and that some 85% of them were women. Paul, would you like to go into this? Paul Sweeney.
Yeah, I was just to say, thank you, Chair. I think the proposal to refer to the Scottish Criminal Cases Review Commission seems inappropriate, given the historic nature of the issue, and that the effect of this would not really be pertaining to a sort of any meaningfully live criminal case, if you like. So I think the Royal Prerogative of Mercy seems like, although it's an unusual process in modern times, seems like a more effective discretionary activity. So if there's a political decision by the Scottish Government, the First Minister indeed, it seems like a fairly straightforward exercise to write to the Queen to request that is done. So I think that's actually probably one of the few grounds perhaps that would be viable for a Royal Prerogative of Mercy to be considered, as opposed to the more onerous process of a Scottish Criminal Cases Review, because it's such a historic situation. No one affected by it is alive and has been long dead. So I think it would be a purely political consideration, and obviously bearing in mind the wider international development implications for contemporary issues, suggests that this is actually more of a broader political exercise rather than something that's engaging criminal law.
Okay, Tess White.
It might be historic, but it is horrific what happened. 2,500 people killed, so 4,000 cases and 2,500 mainly women killed. So I support my colleague in terms of having an actual case to look at would be a good way forward. but it should be recognised that this was horrific.
Well, I think we've got two suggestions that have come forward there. One is to invite the petitioners to consider the Scottish Government's response in outlining the process by which a pardon is granted, whereby it would normally be by exception and individually in response to the actual case that was prosecuted. And I think Paul Sweeney is advocating a broader question to the Scottish Government as to whether or not they might make a political decision, or is there a process by which they could make a political decision to seek to have a broader... Do you want to just clarify that, Paul? I think it's a...
Well, it was just see the Scottish Government's commission response to the issue is basically saying that they would need a submission from the petitioner in relation to why it would be justifiable grounds for an RPM, and I think that's seen as quite an unusual and anachronistic process in current times. And generally, they would refer to the Scottish Criminal Cases Commission. And given the historic nature of the absolutely horrific activity, it would seem like it's a more appropriate process to do the RPM, because it's a discretionary decision of the First Minister alone to refer it to the Queen for a pardon. So it doesn't really need to go through a particularly onerous sort of a legalistic exercise to determine harms, etc., and the merits and demerits of cases. That simply accept the historical facts of the horrific nature of this superstitious activity in the past, and to make a political decision, and basically the First Minister's personal discretion to do so, once equipped with the historic briefing of the incidents and the nature of it. That would simply be a more straightforward exercise to sort of realise the effects of the petitioner's request.
I mean, I'm quite happy to write to the Scottish Government if colleagues are, on the basis that we would be interested to know whether, given the particularly historic and the fact that so many people were affected by this act, whether or not it is possible for the proposal, as Paul Sweeney has suggested it, to be progressed, while at the same time, I think, also writing to the petitioner to ask whether or not it would be possible, in the absence of that, to identify the circumstances of any individual case which might then be one which led to some sort of precedent being set in respect of the issue. So I'm happy to, if the committee is happy to pursue both those options, I'm quite happy to pursue both as well. Are we agreed to do that? Yeah. We'll see what we hear.